Hi, this is Audrey Warner with the Matthew 18 group, and this is the M18 show. I have a new guest today, a dear friend of mine, Rhonda Miller, from Purple for Parents. She's the president of Purple for Parents and also field coordinator for the John Birch Society. Welcome, Rhonda. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Audrey. It's an honor to be with you.
We have had quite adventures together. I first met Rhonda when I did a talk at it was what was it, Rhonda? It was
Protect Child Health Coalition, wasn't it?
yes, we were in that, but also I had come down for a pro-life. You came all the way down to Evansville for this interview or for a presentation I was doing, Right to Life, Southeast Indiana. Yes, I was doing a Right to Life Southeast Indiana presentation to the staff there. You came down, and when you heard I was talking on Alfred Kinsey, I was talking about the sexual revolution, and you wanted to hear about it, so you came on down, and that's where I first met you. So it's been a while. That's been quite a few years. So again, always good to work with you. Rhonda she lives in the state of Indiana right now. She's been instrumental at going after the Kinsey Institute. Now, you've heard me talk of Kinsey in the past, but many don't realize that the Kinsey Institute is still alive and kicking. It is at Indiana University. They have all of the data that Kinsey collected from the pedophiles who raped children, whether it was in Nazi camps to a pedophile in Arizona who raped over 800 children. So I like to say that the Kinsey Institute is the epicenter for the sexual revolution. It contributed, Kinsey Science contributed to the legalization of sexual perversion in America and across the world. The UN has recognized the Kinsey Institute as a legitimate source to be used by nations all over the world. So, Rhonda, why don't you give us an update on what happened at the Kinsey Institute? I had a teeny tiny part of that. You called me, I think it was, what was it, 2 years ago now, that we had done you said, I need some information. I'm helping a state representative defund the Kinsey Institute. So why don't you go from there about what happened?
Yeah, so prior to legislative session in 2023, in that summer of 2023, we had a conversation with a new legislator that was going into office. And so we asked her to look at some different pieces of legislation and the amendment to withdraw the Kinsey or the funding for the Kinsey Institute. We actually had it written as a bill. She chose to put it onto an amendment onto the budget because it was a budget year. Every other year is budget year in Indiana. So we held that, and then the budget is always the last thing that gets passed through at the end of the session. And so she brought it forward and gave a speech on the floor. She had been told in caucus that she could propose the funding of the Kinsey Institute, although I don't think they were quite prepared for what she was going to talk about and what she was going to expose on the floor of the House. And so it was very interesting because she went into a lot of details about his crimes against children and the books that he had written, and she got railed on by a representative from Bloomington, a Democrat who went to the floor and really just railed on her for bringing this forward. And it was interesting because we kind of highlighted him afterwards because, if you're defending one of the most notorious pedophiles in the country, let alone the state of Indiana, then what camp are you really in? So what happened then afterwards is she got railed on by the Speaker of the House. We were in a supermajority red state, and you would think that protecting children would be a top priority for Republicans, but unfortunately, it has not been in Indiana, and it's been very, very frustrating. And so he railed on her for passing the amendment because she had called for a roll call vote. And it was interesting because when she did that, the Democrats all started coughing so that they couldn't hear a second. And we actually had a gentleman who was also a new legislator, very loud voice, who shouted, he seconded the motion so they had to call the roll call vote. They didn't want to go on record saying they were actually defending Kinsey Institute or, going along with defunding it either. And so it caught many of them off guard. They did have to go on record and vote for defunding it. And so what was interesting is this legislator was then called in the next morning, and the Speaker of the House railed on her again. Unfortunately, that happened because of some demonic forces, obviously, that are at work in our state house. And so it's been very eye-opening, but we did follow it all the way through the Senate to make sure they did not pull it out. We sent our team members in to have conversations with some of the senators and make sure that it did not get removed from the budget, because we were ready to hold them all accountable should they have been so careless to have done that. So it did pass. It is in state statute that they cannot provide taxpayer funding to the Kinsey Institute. So here's where we are now. So that was in 2023. We have filed open records request with IU a couple of times. They've dragged their feet. They provided us basically useless information the first time around. They also at the same time had meetings with their board of trustees. There was talks of making the institute once again a nonprofit, and that was the case up until 2016. But it's my understanding that in current statute that the Attorney General has the ability to go after nonprofits in the state of Indiana. So I think that may have been why they backtracked from making it a nonprofit. At this point, the Board of Trustees have basically decided they're going to completely ignore the situation. And so we have filed an open records request again for more information. They have provided it. We are combing through that information that they've sent us, and we are working with other entities without giving too much details and making sure that we do in fact defund the Institute. Because as it stands right now, the Institute is still on IU campus. It still has its own sign. There are still gender studies that students can sign up to take through the Institute. And so its infiltration still continues. And so we are being very meticulous. We are working, like I said, with other entities in the state legal system to be able to make sure that we hold the feet to the fire over IU with protecting their number one pedophile.
And I love the fact that you and I went last year to the and I will add, Rhonda and I were both trained by Dr. Judith Reisman, who is considered the number one expert on Kinsey in the world. And we went down, but we had you had a press conference. You had a press conference at the Kinsey Institute, and you had asked a few speakers. So I came down and I thought, what do you say on the steps of the Kinsey Institute? What do you say at the epicenter for the sexual perversion, for the destruction, not only of America, but of other nations using this sexual perversion? So what do you say when you're there? And I thought, David and Goliath. This is David and Goliath. So I quoted David, where you come to me with spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord. And I know that as people are waking up, because people are waking up, thanks to the good work that you're doing and many others, you're starting to hear about Alfred Kinsey and the truth about his science, as we say. And so, but we went back down this last summer. We stopped by the Kinsey Institute, Rhonda and I, and Representative Cindy Noe. And we actually got to pray with some other women that were there, held up our hand toward the Kinsey Institute, and prayed that God is restoring, that he is going to purge Kinsey science, because it is in every institution in America. So we prayed about that. So there's a picture of the statue of Kinsey that they have resurrected. And I will have my tech crew put up a picture of the Kinsey statue today. Rhonda, do you want to comment on what his statue looks like today and what you think symbolism wise that might mean?
Yeah, so I had just a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine had been down there for an event on the campus. And when she texted me, I said, "Hey, go go take a picture of the Institute. I want to see what it looks like currently so we can document it, right?" So
Yes.
she goes and she finds the statute, and it was quite comical because they have put up these barricades, if you will, with police tape around the statute, like they're protecting their pedophile and his institute. And so it is quite comical. It just goes to show what links they will go to in order to try to protect him. It's like they think
Mhm.
that something's going to happen. He's going to be I would be happy if the statute came down. That's obviously where I stand, but they obviously think that they need to put up this some kind of barrier that's quite honestly anybody could step over it, but
Mhm.
that is what they've done with it currently.
Yeah. And I love Rhonda. A couple of years ago, I happened to have been at a Warrior for Women's conference here in Texas, and I'm thinking, yeah, Warrior for Women. And the speaker had gotten up and she said, there were 300 women in the room, and she said, God could take this group of women and change the world. And everybody's, yeah, and he may have something he wants you to do. And I'm like, yeah. And all of a sudden, my phone buzzes. And it's Rhonda. And Rhonda's texting me and going, hey, can you testify for a bill that would remove the obscenity exemption in Indiana next week? Can you come down? And I'm like, oh wow, So you guys have been instrumental, and I love your group, Purple for Parents, because you have woken up parents all over the state of Indiana to what's happening to the kids. And Rhonda and I were both in the movie The Mind Polluters, which I'm going to put a plug in for that movie. It basically shows how our government schools have figured out how to rewire kids' brains to hate God, hate America, and to embrace sexual perversion. So Rhonda was in there, and actually, there is in the film where we went to testify for this bill that next week. And it was great because Rhonda, you were awesome. You want to share what you had put together and gave to each one of the senators?
Yeah, so this was during COVID when we actually went and testified on this bill.
Mhm.
We were trying to repeal Indiana's obscenity loophole that allows the schools and public libraries to legally distribute pornography, obscenity. And so we had put together some packets, folders for
Mhm.
the legislators on this committee of the excerpts that we had found at that point. And
Mm.
so we dropped this big paper box off at the chairman's office before we went up to the next floor where we had to sign up to testify. And so as
Mhm.
we're standing outside the hallway, they 3 different times they sent individuals up. First, it was the LA of the chairman of the committee, whom I know. And he came and he pulled us all to the end of the aisle, which in the mind polluters, you can see us all standing there. And
Mhm.
he's telling us that we are not allowed to read the excerpts of those books because it was so obscene, which was quite hilarious when you think about it, because here we are testifying at State House that schools shouldn't be giving this material.
Right.
And lo and behold, they don't want to hear it and they don't want it set in committee. And so we asked him, well, why? And he said, well, it's because they oftentimes these committee hearings are relayed into classrooms across the state. And so we're like, okay, you don't want us reading it in the excerpts in the committee hearing where they could see it and hear it across the state, but yet we have the material available in the school libraries. It was actually
Mhm.
quite comical. In fact, former Lieutenant Attorney General Aaron Negengard actually pointed that out, and it's
Mhm.
in the Mind Polluters his clip about how they didn't want us reading that material because it was so obscene. But they sent up the LA, and then they sent up another individual, and they sent up even our sponsor of the bill, Senator Toms from Evansville. They had him come up and tell us the same thing. So 3 times they came to tell us that we could not use those excerpts in our testimony because they were too obscene for us to be even talking about.
Mhm. How ironic. How
Yeah.
ironic that was. But you were successful. And again, it was moms and dads all over the state of Indiana that were going into their school libraries, that were going into their schools and taking pictures and excerpts from books. So, which were pornographic. I to look over this stuff is we're talking hardcore porn that our kids have available to them. So I love how you've been able to bring that to light, because when people are like, well, we need, freedom being able, oh my gosh, you're going to burn books. This would be horrible. That's not what this is about. This is about not showing pornography to children. So you guys have been incredible in doing that. So why don't you share, because you and I have a passion to purge Kinsey from the different aspects. I started with purging Kinsey from the church because a lot of the church resources are based on Kinsey when it comes to Christian sex ed programs or marital intimacy books. A lot of times Kinsey or his associates are in the bibliography. Your focus has been a little different. You have been working on the laws, how Kinsey is in the law and exposing that. But you and I have come together because we have this dream, this vision of restoring God's law in America and making it honorable again. So you bring such an important piece to this conference. Our goal is to have one in every state. We started in Kentucky. We went to your state and did it twice. It was great because to have pastors, to have patriots, to have legislators come to these events and get educated on how our law was changed using Kinsey science and how do we get back. But could you share just a little bit about your piece in the conference? Because I think it's so critical.
Yeah, so as we launch these RSVP conferences across the country, each one of us do bring our own component to it. And mine is exposing how big pharma and the globalists have worked together to incorporate all of this sexual perversion in our schools. So I lay out the foundation of what they did to transform through social emotional learning and the whole mental health push. Because when you get children, not who they identify with, you get them pushed down this transgender path. You get them loaded up with all this sexual perversion and pornography and ideology. And many of these pornography books are not only very graphic, but they're very, very dark. You're talking about violent rape. You're talking about prostitution. You're talking about very extreme situations. And so it drives up the mental health. And so social emotional learning is a big component of this because they're bringing in comprehensive sex ed, which is Kinsey sex ed and the pornography through social emotional learning, which coincides with mental health. So that is my component, is exposing how big pharma and the globalist, Gates Foundation in particular, and his other arms that he works with into the classrooms through grant money, expose the grant money that was used to bribe schools. And then what they did was they went on 3 years of training in order to take this across the state and implement it in classroom to classroom.
Yeah. And it they're all the same players and we're seeing them funding all of it's brilliant on big pharma's part because they're making money off of birth control. They're making money off of the hormones for the transgender issue. So this is of course we have vaccines that they're developing for sexually transmitted diseases. So it's like a no-brainer as to why they're involved in this. Coming, let's kind of bring this to an end here, but I want you to share, because I mean, I started out with this, I'm just a mom who's going to listen to me, and God just started opening huge doors. So the main goal of these interviews is to offer some hope and encouragement to people across the world. So share what you're seeing God doing through what you're doing, and how you first got into this, and just give some words of encouragement to people at the end here.
Sure. So yeah, I've been in this battle and researching what was going on since about 2012. And I started waking up, and it just kept digging down all the rabbit holes. And the Lord led me down one connection to another. Put you in my path. He put Dr. Reisman in my path. So it's been very encouraging to me as I've gone through this journey with the Lord in this battle, the people he brings alongside. And you will gain a whole nother level of family, a network, if you will, of warriors that will fight this with you. And so I was with one organization when I started. And then when Purple for Parents Indiana started, I had been paying attention to it. It started in fall of 2019. And then by the spring of 2020, I had come on board and then ended up taking over the organization in 2021, I believe it was. And so it has been fascinating because we have been the only organization that has really hit this head on. We don't bow, bend, or break, and we are not afraid to stand up for truth. We have gotten all the demonic attacks, and the Lord has provided armor. The armor of God has become very, very pivotal in this battle. And I tell you, it's been interesting to watch how people rally together and the support that we have gotten. We are actually global at this point. We have people from all over the globe who are following our organization. In fact, we just had somebody reach out on one of our posts the other day from Wales and was saying how they supported our efforts, what we're doing here. So it's been encouraging to see you can stand up and push back. And when you do, you keep plucking away at it, and eventually you will see victory. It took us 3 years to overturn Indiana's obscenity exemption clause that protected schools. We did do it in 2023. So we've had many schools have cleaned house. They've actually decided, you know what, we're going to step up and we're going to actually protect the kids, and they have removed the books. We've got others that don't. So we go after them. We expose them for who they are. Because if you're not willing to protect kids, you are aligning yourself with the enemy, and you need exposed. And so it's been well worth the fight, well worth the energy, and helping parents to wake up across the state has been my number one goal. And so that has been very rewarding as we come alongside and people understand now that there is a major battle ahead of us that we're facing. But together we can all do it. And then, launching these conferences, the RSVP conference, I mean, helping people across the nation stand up. But we just went to Georgia in April. And the stories we're getting from that, Audrey, are so incredible.
It's
so
spreading.
There is hope, and there is absolutely hope. You just have to stay the course, and the Lord will provide every step of the way.
Yep. So share how people can get to your website, how they can get a hold of you. Share that with us.
Sure. So you can reach out through Gmail or through our email. It's p4pind@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, purpleforparentsindiana.org, where we have a lot of resources. We've been able to put up a lot of dark money charts for people to print them off. We have the PDF up there. Print them off and share them because it exposes the money behind some of these dark entities in education. We also have a lot of Dr. Reisman's resources up there. The ALEC paper we often talk about, Audrey, that exposes Kinsey through the American Legal Exchange Council. And so that's up there for people to download. We have the white paper that I worked with Dr. Reisman before she passed that exposes Kinsey and the MK Ultra and the CIA. So that's up there too. Print that off, download it, and read it. There's a lot of resources on our website that you are free to take and use.
Yep. Awesome. You have awesome resources on your website. So anyway, I want to thank you, Rhonda, for being on. We had some technical glitches, but that seems to be the case. We have hurdles, but we keep getting over them, and God is with us. So thank you, dear sister in Christ, for being on the show. We appreciate you. God bless. And this is Audrey Warner from the Matthew 18 group signing off. Thank you.